This is the Conscious Hour, and this is part three. And this is called The Art of War. In the 5th century, there was a book written by, or a manuscript by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And the art of war is not about conquering, it's about making it a permanent solution so it's equitable. So we have to learn from this, but listen to this conversation because it ties right into what I now call, have been talking about, which is called gangster capitalism, the instant gratification. We're always wanting to conquer, take over, bomb, and destroy countries to get what we want.
What do you make of this, and what do you make of Trump's comments that Iran has not paid enough for what it has done to humanity?
Well, I think there's a certain amount of projection going on. I mean, what has Iran done? I mean, Iran has not invaded another country in what, 200, 250 years, if even that. I mean, Iran has not been, the bad actor in the Middle East. The bad actor in the Middle East is most certainly Israel and the U.S. And the U.S.'s quislings. These are the ones that have really been a blight on the human conscience and on humanity. They've been the serial violators of international law. And this current war on Iran is also a violation of international law. It is, the crime of crimes, the crime of aggression. And so if there's some notion that Iran has not paid enough, I just find those terms, absurd. And what would that mean? What would that look like? Put a price on it. I mean, isn't thousands of dead civilians enough? Isn't, I just kind of stagger at that kind of framing. But what the U.S. does do, and it's done it for a very, very long time, is it uses sanctions and blockade and embargoes as a form of warfare. It's simply a continuum. Economic warfare, trade warfare, financial warfare, along with lawfare, and then kinetic warfare and subversion and dirty wars and all of that. It's all part of the toolkit. It's all part of a continuum. It's a kind of multi-dimensional approach to waging war against its enemies in order to maintain permanent hegemony over the planet. And certainly on that level, we know that these are not new. Iran has been suffering, some of the most stringent sanctions since, 1979, and certainly since, the past decades. Sanctions, we have to remember, kill more than kinetic war on any given day, on any given year. More people die from sanctions, far more people die from sanctions than they do from kinetic war. And certainly the US has this notion that it will blockade and strangle and choke and weaken and enfeeble Iran and other enemies until they are willing to submit, at which point usually the strategy is to sanction a country so much that it's on the verge of collapse, at which point the US goes in with kinetic action and then proclaims itself the military victor and trumpets its military prowess. That's usually how the scenario goes. It's not working this way because Iran has planned for decades, because it knew the US had it in its crosshairs at least since the 90s, certainly since the early 2000s. And it has prepared severely and with tremendous discipline. And now it's showing its mettle. On the other hand, the US really hasn't developed its strategies since the early 2000s, essentially trying to use the same playbook which Iran was prepared for. And so, the US has this doctrine of war called air-sea battle, derived from air-land battle, which is derived from Israeli war doctrine from the Yom Kippur War. Air-sea battle and air-land battle are about decapitation, strikes in the rear and decapitating your enemy. This strategy didn't work for the very simple reason that Iran had a starfish strategy. You cannot decapitate a starfish. The Mosaic strategy involves 31 independent or semi-independent commands that are holographic and fractal, and that can simply split off and become their own independent agents of kinetic response, which they did with extraordinary skill, extraordinary acumen. And within the first hours and days of the war, they knocked out the U.S.'s key strategic capacities, in particular its radar capacities. And it also struck the AWACS. This is like sacking the quarterback. You cannot wage coordinated war once you're blind and once your quarterbacks have been taken out. And so Iran has shown that it is learning, that it has a much faster learning curve, and the US has a learning curve which is flat. So in war is essentially a contest of learning curves. Iran's is exponential and the US is flat. And this is yet.
And that's the perfect segue into the next piece. When you're operating by might and might, and we've conquered and this is what we do, you've never learned. You've never learned that every war that you've had never really worked out. Sure, you made profits, but the countries eventually became sovereign and doing their own thing. Look at Vietnam. So it's this instant gratification, and we don't have the ability to look into the looking glass in the future and say, so what are we trying to establish? Well, ideally, a global trade, open trade with all countries, so we grow a global economy so all countries could profit. In other words, everybody gets to grow in this thing, not just this old megalomaniac, we want to control the world, which is this Western-like kind of alliance that we've had for how long? We should have never gone into another war from Vietnam on, should have been the end, but of course we didn't, and we just continued the cycle. So now we've blamed Iran, but Iran's not the problem because the one that's blaming them is the United States and the West. Oh, Iran. No. Iran is the solution, and that's why they've been so systematically decapitating certain portions. So they're trying to say to the U.S., hey, you can't be successful. If you keep going down this road, you will be destroyed. And Netanyahu might use nuclear weapons. And then what do you have? You don't have a solution. You don't have President Trump being the leader of the United States. You have a collapsed economy and massive amount of people being killed. For what? For what? Because the Western gangsters want to go over there and finally get a hold of Iran. We tried it since 1953 and we haven't been able to do it. And they've been around for over 5,000 years. Hello, I think it's time to wake up, don't you think? It's the conscious hour, folks. It's our conscious hour to tell those Beltway bandits in D.C., hey, sit down, wake up, and there's a permanent solution sitting right in front of you. It's called the art of war. You learn from it, and now we create the solutions. We already got it. Global trade, open trade, no more wars, done with it. Or blow the world up. This is the Conscious Hour, folks. Thanks for tuning in. And yes, that's part 3, because this part is so important. We learn from history, the art of war, Sun Tzu. Check it out. Please hit the like and share button. Please leave me your comments. Leave me thoughts about what you would like me to produce more of. What do you want to learn more about? What's your questions about? Why do we keep doing this? Let me know. Give me your input. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Please donate to the 501c3. Thanks for tuning into the Conscious Hour. It's our Conscious Hour. All of us.